Our next speaker will be Felix Poulin. Many of you know Felix. He's a leading figure in the broadcast industry's transition to the IT infrastructure, focusing on building internal collaborations around key innovations as the Director of Global Innovation Collaborations at the CBC Radio Canada, a national public media company. Please welcome Felix to the stage.
Thomas. Great presentation from Andrew. There's hope, maybe more green on that pyramid at the bottom. I see many familiar faces. Perhaps some of you already have heard a bit what I will be talking about. Talking about the second wave of the transition to IP and IT. But because there's a second wave, there must have been a first wave. So what's that first wave? It's that whole transition from SDI to IP, of course. It happened over many years, and maybe if we can set a beginning of this with a meeting at Turner in Atlanta in 2012, where a bunch of people here were in the room and wondered how we can leverage and use the IT technology to evolve our business, to evolve our industry. And there was a lot of vision at the time. Part of it was realized by this first wave. So there was the formation of the Joint Task Force on Network Media. We created the reference architecture at the time, and there was a lot of good ideas there. That led to the work of eventually VSF and SMPTE to standardize ST2110. That is now mainstream, I would say. We had a number of good success with this. And to close the loop even, tonight there will be a ceremony to award the standard. So I think we can circle back on that first wave. But technology never stops. Progress is always there. And part of that initial vision we collectively had, there was the whole transition to IT, so more than IP, was the use of technology. And 2012 was a bit early for that, but if we look at the evolution of IT technology since then, there's a huge exponential growth in terms of network capacity, in terms of compute power, and that really make it ready for us to embrace that kind of technology at the core of our facility. But why would we do that? EBU in 2023 published the first vision document, a white paper explaining this idea to go full software-based, interoperable media function instead of hardware, multi-vendor, scalable, be it public, cloud or on-prem, doesn't matter. It's the same architecture, same set of technology stack. And to achieve that, we needed a layered model like any IT system to decouple the different layers. In the meantime, my organization, CBC Radio Canada, we were finished with the transition to IP in Montreal. So a major facility doing audio, video, radio, TV, online at large scale. But now it's time for us to refresh also the technology of our facility in Toronto, which is our English service headquarters. And we are ready to go in that next wave with this, especially that this is a brownfield project spanning many years. So the need to evolve and to adapt to the business is super important for us. There's a number of core principles that we put in place to achieve that vision of flexibility. So the clear separation between production areas and control rooms and the operator is super key. That everything is routed using IP, so there's no legacy routing in there, and we want to minimize the number of protocols and formats in there. And the conscious bias towards software-based solution running on CUTs. And I think it's more bias conscience. It's very, very strong. Now we are really ready to jump into more and more software with this project. Tomorrow, my colleague Simon will present the full story of that project. But it was in 2024 when we started looking at this, and the first step was we wanted to go on the market and see how the market was ready to help us with this. So we did a tender, and the tender was we presented a typical television workflow, so a control room workflow with a number of media functions, actually 30 media functions for video and audio mixing, switching, multi-viewer, graphic rendering, clips, recorder, player, etc. We asked as a requirement that those functions are going to be able to be run on cloud or on-prem, and it has to be the same media function. It's not a specific version for the cloud or on-prem. And the ability to spin up in a flexible way to organize those workflows as we need. For us, it's super important to be multi-vendor, and the tender you'll see the result, kind of confirm why, because we don't believe everybody will be able to provide, a single vendor will not be able to provide all the function we need in the workflow. We have a need for low latency. It's live production. There's a number of use cases that require re-entry and self-listening, and those kind of use cases requiring this low latency. Finally, we want this to be optimized for using modern compute resources. So that's a vision of the same workflow, but how it will work on a compute environment. So all those media function, it's a box on there. It's a small software component from different vendors. So you could see that different colors are different vendors. Some vendors are better at doing audio, some are doing graphics, some are better at doing other video encoding and so on. And what's important in terms of scalability is that those media functions can also run on different nodes in a large cluster of compute. So results of that tender, we got 12 vendors who qualified to minimum requirements at the time, and proposed 170 media functions to cover what we needed. Some observation is that, first of all, for us, it was a clear message that a lot of vendors are working on this and already have product to be able to do that. That the combination of traditional vendor, but also we saw a number of newcomers in the market. So that's also interesting. There's some corner case or side application that can be provided by other company we don't know yet, that are new to us. The flexible acquisition model, which is a good thing, which give us choice for our agility. We can, of course, use resource temporarily and some other more permanently and optimize that. It's also a challenge to deal with that because not every vendor has the same models. But certainly, we had a good assumption that no single vendor will be able to provide all of the 30 media function that we ask for. So multi-vendor is fundamental. Another question we asked in our tender was, there was a number of existing platforms on the market, and there's today many more logos to those platforms. They were the one we were aware in 2024, in summer 2024, a bit more than a year ago. We asked all those vendors on which of those platforms are you going to work with? Which one are you going to support? And at the time, no platform has attracted a significant amount of partners. So it's hard to pick one. And the fact that there was many platforms already was causing a little bit of confusion, a little bit that chicken egg, where which one will win, where should I invest, where should I spend time developing, and the same for us, which one should we pick? And there's also a danger of vendor lock-in. You pick one, and you can pray that this will be the good one, because otherwise you can lose a lot of investment. So this was the state and the mindset we were a year ago. And coincidentally, we were working with the colleagues at EBU, so many other broadcasters, having the same reflection at the same time. And we put together the dynamic media facility reference architecture. The goal of this exercise was to capture that vision and see what it would mean in terms of implementation. What are the key features of it? What do we need to do? And to identify the gaps, what do we need to work on as an industry to solve interoperability challenges that we have? So part of that reference architecture, the core of it really is that layered model where we have 3 bottom layers that are the infrastructure, infrastructural platform, OS, virtualization, and containerization. And this, with the blue color, is certainly something we want to reuse from the IT industry. This is not something we want to invest massively as an industry. We can learn what are the best patterns. We can complement with tools, but we need to leverage what's existing there. What we need to work on as an industry are the top layers, application and user interface. Of course, these are specialty to our business. The media functions, of course, companies are good at doing that. And there's a middleware in there in the middle, media exchange, how those media functions will exchange media between them. There's also a number of cross-cutting concerns. So those are provisioning, control, and monitoring and security. And these are spanning all the layers. This is something that needs to be addressed at all layers in different ways. So that's the abstract model. One thing that was clear after that tender, and we were at IBC a bit more than a year ago talking with vendors, is that we wanted to address the media exchange layer as a first step, because this will unlock that multi-vendor interoperability. Each vendor have their ways to exchange memory between their application internally. Otherwise, you can use streaming like 2110 or NDI or technology like that in between your media functions. But then you have other problems. You have problem with latency. You have problem with requiring a lot of compute power in order to encapsulate and to transfer this media through a network. So we agreed, and there was a lot of interest with the vendors to address that as a first step. To achieve interoperability. Thomas Edwards, just after me, will deep dive into MXL, the project itself. This is the kind of, at the beginning of the story, what we presented to the industry as a wish, what we wanted to achieve. Going back. So you see the media exchange layer. It's basically a memory data buffer with an abstraction that can deal with a number of ways to exchange memory, be it in the same node or between nodes or in the cloud. So that is the abstract model of it. And that's led to the discussion with the industry. How are we going to implement that and to address that? And the discussion converged because we were at a time where normally we would have sit together probably in a committee and started to draft a specification or a standard. But we said, can we go a little bit faster than that? I showed you previously the first wave, the years it took to bring 2110 from an idea to a mature technology. Can we go faster than that? We know that vendor are already doing it. There's an expertise there, and it's just a question of alignment. And this is where the idea of developing an open source software development kit that the vendors could use in their application to allow interoperability between their application could save a lot of time. And what was important is to use this agile methodology where we start small with only what's required minimally to start being able to to try and prototype and play with it and learn as an industry, and then we iterate and we improve to full feature. Leveraging existing IT technology expertise, so we try as much as possible not to reinvent when it's already there. And this is where EBU reach out to NEBA to have a large user base and approach the Linux Foundation to have this expertise in open source project and form the MXL project. So the rest of the story and the technical detail will follow with Thomas. What's next? There's a lot of things that needs to be resolved above and below MXL. We needed to see how we can collaborate on solving those things. And each of these problems won't necessarily require the same solution. We took the open source approach for the media exchange layer, but we may need specification, standard, best practices. We may need a number of other ways to solve all the problems that we will have to face to achieve interoperability on the different layers. This is where EBU and AMWA decided to form the Joint Task Force on Dynamic Media Facility to provide that forum to have those discussions and to identify what works needs to be done. There's a number of topics that were identified as priority topics that needs to be addressed. End-to-end synchronization of Essence. And Andy, are you there? Andy will present tomorrow. Is it 12:30 on this very topic? Andy Rayner from Appier, if you don't know him. That's something we tried to address for many years. We had those discussions also in the ST2110 times. But since MXL is an asynchronous environment, the ability to resynchronize Essence that have traveled and been processed separately is totally essential in this case. So we need to do it right. Another big challenge, talking about multi-vendors sharing the same resources on the same compute node, because to achieve this kind of flexibility and scalability, we need to be able to mix different vendors on the same node and not just to have one node for one vendor. Only you need two because you need resiliency. You need at least two per vendor, and it would not be practical. So the goal is to be able to share those resources between the different vendors, but there's still questions on how are we going to understand what are the capabilities each of those functions will require, how are we going to guarantee that, or are we going to make sure that vendors are not stepping on toes of each other, and then for the user, who is responsible if there's a problem. So this will be a huge discussion. MXL is really the fabric to exchange media, but there's still a need to discover flows and to connect them, to make connections. So this is also a task that needs to be done. So certainly NMOS is a candidate for that. And there's all other aspects of orchestration, and I put orchestration between apostrophe here, because that's a term that probably when I use it, I have a different definition than you have in your head. Just for fun, I have a little bit of time. When I say orchestration, what first come to your mind? Yes. So a bunch of tools to integrate everything together. Another idea of orchestration. So I hear, for example, network orchestration or flow orchestration, or sometimes I hear container orchestration. Some people will say scheduling is orchestration. So that's a word that we need to be very careful. I think Thomas Gunkel, you're going to do a presentation tomorrow about orchestration. That's a place where we need also to come up with a vocabulary to understand each other. Because when someone talked to me about orchestration, I my brain just paused and I tried to figure out which orchestration are you talking about. But there will be many of those aspects that we need to address in that work. There will be a kickoff meeting at the EBU 27-28 of November. So EBU will welcome the JTDMF. So we'll communicate more in the next days about the agenda, the outline, and what's the target audience who should be there to contribute to the discussion. So summary of that presentation, the move to software-based, we're definitely there. There's a lot of activity in our industry. The IT technology is ready, and the user, as us, we are ready to jump in. We need to do that to bring the business agility we require to evolve in current business landscape. The ST2110 and the whole transition to IP was really an enabler to get there. So we're not saying that ST2110 is down, we're going to change to something totally different. ST2110 gave us the opportunity to get away from the very industry-specific connectivity we had to a pure IT connectivity. So by doing that, we enable the move to software. So 2110 and other streaming protocol will be still around those islands of software, and we still need to use that for many years to go. The reference architecture is, I recommend a reading. It's really a guide in that. And the EBU DMF group is also refreshing it, and there will be a new version soon with all the learnings in the last year since it was first published. The Media Exchange MXL open source SDK. So that was the first effort. That was really important to be fast and create the momentum around it. And you'll see it's getting there very quickly. And we have created now a forum to address many other of these problems. So join us and contribute. We will need help, certainly.
Again, we have a bunch of time for questions. We have the app that you can use. You scan the QR code and you can type in the question. In the meantime, if there was a question from the audience, I could pass the microphone. That would be great. Let's see.
Yeah, question there.
Looking into the light.
A lot of you have addressed like security issue when it comes to what we're going into now with the zero trust and everything like that. What about role-based access controls with dealing with the integration of this from the beginning to where you don't have to worry about the like prompt injection attacks and things like that have to go along with LLMs?
Fundamentally, this stack of technology could be run in the public cloud. So you need to have the same level of security that you would require to any cloud-based application. So role-based access, zero trust, and everything needs to come native in those architecture. This is not something we will be able to add later, certainly.
Any other question?
As I understand it, this is a complete COTS. This architecture is based off of a COTS with a software-based architecture. How is this architecture going to accommodate a blended model with existing hardware? Because this would require someone to go fresh over to a new system, but I suspect there's going to be migration along the way. So is there an accommodation for that hybrid or blended model?
So the architecture per se does not prescribe a certain hardware or certain set of requirements for hardware. And just as an example, MXL itself is something that requires very little resource, and we say it could run from a Raspberry Pi to a full data center fledged infrastructure. So The question is the scale you want to achieve and the kind of use case you need. There could be a small system could run on a relatively couple of years old servers probably without problems, but then if you need to have a bigger system with all the resiliency you need, sharing of memory across many nodes over a high-speed network. Now you need probably to go in more data center grade types of equipment. So the architecture per se is scalable and could eventually run on a very small system if it's a simple application.
Any other question?
So using the concept of open source in other scenarios, like for example SRT, where vendor adoption has taken a certain rate, do you guys forecast a certain trajectory for vendors to start developing using this model?
Sorry,
how quick is vendor adoption going to be in your terms? Like, can you forecast that adoption?
So, I mean, for us at CBC, we are already building it. You'll see the presentation from Simon tomorrow. We already experimenting and soon putting on air the first steps of this. So for us, we want this to happen quite quickly, and we are working with the industry for that reason. Now, when the whole industry will embrace that and everybody will do that, there's a number of steps to get there, I guess. It's similar to 2110. When we did that project, we were one of the few doing this implementation as early adopter. But now, I think 2110 is something that's much more accessible and being deployed by, with small system and big system. I cannot tell you, I mean, we did previously, attempt to do roadmaps with timelines and can say we reviewed that a few times on the way. But I mean, we will definitely at CBC have systems up and running in the next year, and we'll just grow and iterate over that as the technology become available.
Thank you.
We have a couple more minutes. I do see some questions in the app now. One of the questions is, are there any hands-on courses that someone might be able to start to learning MXL? Like, how does someone get started with MXL?
So as every new technology, at the beginning, it's hard to get the master class with everything, but there's a number of starting points, I believe. My colleagues at CBC, developed a hands-on tutorial that give a chance to, people on their own laptop, to try MXL and, see how it works. So it's on GitHub. It's on the CBCRC GitHub. You can find it. It's MXL hands-on tutorial. So that would be one way that everybody can already play with that. Maybe I should mention, we wanted to talk about it tomorrow, but I should mention that there will be a session of the SMPTE Toronto chapter on, what are the day, 21st, 22nd? No, 21st October. So it's next week, actually. And part of that session that's available remotely, there will be a guided exercise of running that tutorial. So you can do that remotely from home if you don't want to come in Toronto. It will be at the CBC building in Toronto. So that's one way to, explore MXL and understand what it means. I guess all the, CENTI, EBU, slowly we have more and more content about DMF, and in the curriculum of the training of your preferred organization, it will be growing over the next months, I guess.
Okay, and then one final question, bouncing back to DMF. Do you envision the actual implementation of DMF being done by broadcasters or vendors, or system integrators? How does the industry envision the implementation and rollout of DMF happening?
It certainly put the task of system integration a little bit on the end user or the system integrator, certainly, because we're really talking about assembling our own facility in our project. Again, you'll see more tomorrow, but we also build our own user interface on top of solution provided by vendors. I guess one way to do that is to, as a user, to be more involved in the integration and kind of continuous improvement of your facility. Also for system integrator, but also, you already have those vendors providing their own solution on their own platform that can also provide nice user interface with. So if it's what you need as a user, there's also a possibility to do that. What we bring in the sauce is the ability to do multi-vendor, so it will ease all of those islands to integrate with more different vendors than currently. Most of the time you need to pick a platform and to deal with it.
And with that, we're out of time for this session. Thanks, Felix.
Thank you.